So I really believe that you talked about friction. I'll reframe it as like productive struggle. I think
Yeah.
what teachers are getting right is that AI does make it easier for students to shortcut work, the result of which could mean that they're just not going through the productive struggle that we know is so critical to their development as learners. And so, like for me, as someone who did a lot of writing in college and in high school, sitting in front of a blank piece of paper and struggling with like, how do I start this essay? How do I get what's in my head onto that piece of paper? Um, it is the hardest part of writing, but it's also like maybe the most important part is like building the persistence to get past the writer's block. And if your instinct is always just to like, oh, I'll just open up ChatGPT and have it create an outline, and then I'll like go through the outline and provide some feedback, and then boom, I have like a first draft. And I worry about students that, before we get them to use AI to augment their abilities as writers, they need to kind of build that core writing expertise. And I think it's different than prompt engineering, right? Writing is necessary to be able to prompt, but it doesn't necessarily go back and forth. I don't know that if you just learn prompt engineering that you're now also learning sort of like all the core skills in writing.
I
But
completely agree.
okay.
That statement.
Dang. Okay. I was hoping you would disagree, but yeah, fine. So
But I have a lot of nuance here. So the first thing I have to say, so I'm very lucky in that my mom was an ECE educator for many years, director, right? My sister is a K through 5 interventionist, but she was a kindergarten teacher for many years. 3 kids. I've got my son, like he is learning to read with paper books. And so I do really believe, exactly like you said, the daunting experience of a blank page and having to create, that matters. The big challenge that I have, so the first thing I would say is like reading and writing and math are as relevant as ever and possibly even more important. I want to say, okay, so I think Socratic circles, right, that required deep analysis, those types of things are as important as ever. I also think exactly like you, right, that expert writers are the ones who are able to have the taste needed to differentiate with AI. And so at the same time, we have a huge problem in education, and that's that people don't get feedback. And so in addition, if I were to like really put all of my theses together into, it'd be like essentially 2, maybe 3 buckets. The first is like impact focused, human-centered, AI leveraged creation for young people. That's especially in subjects like history, STEM, science, right? These kids should be creating more. Reading and writing are essential. And the best use that I have seen is immediate feedback. Now I can see people saying, well, the immediate feedback can slow things down. I've used Class Companion. I've seen folks working on Quill, really curious about Quill. Both of those, like, I can definitely vouch for Class Companion. The reason I vouch for it, and the analogy I love to use, is like kids who shoot free throws and then they find out 2 weeks later whether or not it went through. And I have a really large number of MLL learners who really need that feedback right away. So 2 places that I use AI for writing is I help build sentence frames and exemplars. Like, this is something I'm an expert in, but it takes an incredible amount of time. So sentence frames are essentially like the mortar language, the language that holds together the content expertise students have. A lot of MLLs need support with this. And so we want to use it as a scaffold. They use it and then they move on from it. I use AI to build those. That's a huge use case. The next is immediate feedback. And so that's where young people get feedback right away on their writing, and it impacts their ability to improve faster. And that's an extension of me. Like, I don't want the AI to own that. I want to be able to create the conditions for what type of feedback would I give, or would hopefully somebody better than me give, and then help that young person improve faster. And so there are a bunch of places where like kids using AI to write, especially really from K to maybe 9, or until they develop some place of proficiency, will undermine it long term. And so, yeah, I really agree with that. And I have pushes around like, how do we support young people leveraging AI in a way that was never possible? How do we give feedback faster in a way that was never possible?